everybody living in a perfect world. Everybody's out there crying to be heard. But I got a new fire burning my heart, lighting up the darkness and moving like a meteorite. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe. Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire! Oh, fire, fire, fire. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith.
Hi, welcome to ReneMarie Stroke of Luck. I'm ReneMarie, and this show is really very close to my heart, and I'll tell you why. Steven was 23 years old when he suffered a stroke, and I, if everyone remembers, was 26 years old when I suffered the stroke. So I could literally relate to how Steven's feeling, and we're going to really have a very interesting conversation. I got to tell you, though, Steven is so well ahead of where I was. I was so lost, and I guess my brain was a little more defragmented than his, but he has jumped in 1 year later after his stroke and really is becoming an advocate. As everyone knows, it took me 20 years at least to really understand that this is where I needed to go and I needed to do. So, you know, we're really happy and honored that he took the time to come on the show, and just, you know, and tell his story. I'm learning so much that people really listen to stories, and really touches you, makes it real.
They learn from the stories.
Yeah. We talk about, insurance and politics and, and really how to prevent a stroke and ways to, deal with stroke afterwards. But these are the stories that really capture everybody, to really listen to someone who just happened to. It happens to anybody at any specific time. It does not matter your age. And Steven Malinowski, I said it correctly.
Perfect.
Is a prime example. So we're so happy to come here And right before the show, Steven is so engaged with being an advocate that he's given us confirmation that he is going to be a part of our 5th annual telethon. So thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah. So let me welcome Judy, of course, the co-host to the show. Hi, Judy.
Hi. How are you?
I'm very good.
I want to wish the audience an early Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. I don't know if they could see it. Could they see all that stuff? No, because of the just move it. If you can move the screen back a little bit. But so and then of course Steven Malinowski. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, you are doing such incredible work. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but I'm really interested in how you knew that you needed to jump in and be an advocate, because I was in a fog. I didn't know. I just kind of retreated back and really needed to understand and have people guide me around me to help me. So,
well, to me, I feel like the thing that helped me personally get through all of it was I noticed that my friends and family were upset, confused,
very upset.
Scared, you name it, and I almost felt like it was up to me to ease their minds a little bit. From the second I was diagnosed, I was starting to think of ways like I could see my parents upset, my girlfriend, my siblings. I have like a million siblings. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and they all came to see me. And I could tell everybody was just upset, uncomfortable, so I was immediately trying to figure out ways that I could make them feel more comfortable with the situation and help them understand that everything was going to be okay. And I did that through humor, I guess. I started making jokes. I had some pretty good stroke puns, and eventually people are laughing and they're not crying anymore. It just made me feel a little bit better.
They could see that your senses were back.
Right.
That you had your senses.
And when I followed up with the neurologist, maybe a couple of months after,
Who was your neurologist?
His name is Dr. Jeffrey Katz at North Shore Manhasset. He's amazing. And the PA or whoever was, taking my vitals, every time I would go in there, they'd ask me, are you suicidal? Are you depressed? Are you anxious? And I was like, no, actually, I feel quite the opposite. I feel thrilled.
Why would you feel suicidal?
That's exactly what I said. I said, I feel happy that I got this second chance, that I'm alive. I feel grateful. I feel the opposite of those things. And they said, well, that's great, but most people, especially the ones around your age that have a stroke, they have a hard time adjusting. Even if, like me, I came away with it with basically no residual effects. It's just the anxiety, is this going to happen again? They can't sleep at night. He was telling me, obviously can't talk about other patients, giving names and stuff, but they gave me a general statement that they have patients around my age that, they didn't go back to school, they didn't go back to work for a long time, whereas I got bored of staying home after a week of missing work, and I went back a week later.
What symptoms did you have before the stroke?
So
you had 2.
Yeah, so it was technically 2, but they say it was caused by the same blood clot that kind of broke off and formed 2 episodes. So it depends on who you talk to. The emergency room doctor said 2 strokes, but the neurologist now says it's technically 1. So
it was 2 strokes within what period of time?
Probably about half an hour.
Oh, okay.
And this happened at work?
Yes, I was working in Uniondale as a teacher's assistant, and I remember I was actually helping a student with they were doing a science project, and I leaned over to help him, and all of a sudden I heard a blast in my ear. My ear started ringing, and I thought had my eardrum had ruptured or something. It was unlike anything I ever experienced,
right.
But it was painful and it was loud, and my ear was ringing. And I faced my fair share of injuries. I used to play rugby in college, and you name it, I probably broke it. So I'm familiar with pain, but this was more intense than any of those things. So I kind of knew,
you got a sense that this was something.
Yeah, it was weird, and it was just the ear. It was just the ringing. It was just the pain.
And you never had anything before that?
No, and I started holding my ear and acting weird, and the classroom teacher said to me, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I feel like my eardrum popped or something is weird with my ear." And he was telling me "Oh, it's okay, have a seat, whatever." And eventually I was sitting down and the room started spinning. I remember looking up at the clock and it was just going, and I was like, well, now this is totally weird.
My God.
And that episode lasted maybe 5 minutes, but that was it. It was just the spinning, the ear pain, the ear ringing, and then it was accompanied by a headache. and I felt fine after it. I couldn't hear out of my ear, which was weird, but I just with the whole
So you didn't know that you needed to go to the emergency
no,
room?
the whole time I was just thinking it was an ear thing. That was the dominating symptom, and I never ruptured my eardrum, but I know I heard a ringing,
Right,
and I had
right,
ear pain, so
right.
that's what I assumed it was. So I actually asked my teacher. I was like, I have this weird ear thing. I was wondering if it was okay if I went home early, because we didn't assume stroke at that point. I didn't
Right.
have any facial drooping or
Right.
arm
You
weakness.
You didn't have any of the signs that
It was-
you talk about.
Yes, it was just the dizziness and the ear situation.
When you were driving, when you started driving, you didn't feel dizzy until you were driving?
No, so I was actually feeling better. I just still couldn't hear out of my left ear, which was weird. But I was going home. I was leaving work early because I wanted to go get this ear thing checked out. And I was driving home. I live in Seaford, and I was working in Uniondale, so I usually take the Parkway. But I was worried if I get dizzy again and I'm on a Parkway, that's going to be a real problem.
What I find amazing is you're very coherent to the situation.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually vividly remember
Right.
all of it.
Right.
So
And I wasn't so coherent. I was
You
like,
passed out, didn't you?
well, I went down.
Yeah.
I went down at the softball field.
so I actually, fortunately enough, because it helps me tell the story, but I remember it, or unfortunately, because it was a scary situation.
Yeah.
But I like to look on the bright side. I'll say fortunately.
Yeah, no.
I
That's
remember
why
it.
this show is called Stroke of Luck.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
it was my stroke of luck.
Exactly.
I experienced it.
Yeah, so then when I was driving home, I avoided the parkways. I took side streets just because I felt like I
That was
wasn't
wise.
I wasn't sure what was happening, but I knew that if I felt that dizzy sensation again, there's no way I should be in a car going fast.
Right.
But I still wanted to get home or get to a doctor or something to check out my ear. So I called my girlfriend. I had her on speakerphone, and I told her what happened. I said, had this weird dizzy spell, and I can't hear out of my ear now. It was ringing, but now it's not ringing anymore. And she said, okay, do you want me? And I told her when she would speak, even though the phone was on
hear it.
speaker, I could only hear her out of my right ear. So I asked her to project her voice. But when she projected her voice, it would hit my left ear and it would hurt because
Oh
my
my
ear was
God.
in pain. So I said to her, I was like, actually, you know what? Every time you say anything, it hurts my ear. So she was like, do you want me to hang up? And I, thank goodness, because I don't know how I had the foresight. But I said to her, can you stay on the phone but just not say anything? Which was a
This
weird
way
request.
She would
Yeah.
know where
If I got into trouble,
you could.
yeah, because luckily, I don't think in the state I was in I could have called 911 because nothing was working.
Did she call 911?
So, no, that's one of the reasons why I want to advocate for stroke awareness, because everything I did was the wrong thing. And if somebody else...
Shouldn't have been
But
trying.
Yes.
The truth is that
It was hard to say.
Nothing that you're telling us would have displayed.
Right.
But on the flip side, we've always said that if something's going on, go.
Yes, exactly.
And I
Go.
have to admit, I've never heard about an ear.
Yeah.
Right.
Me either.
They said that in
part,
the
I've
emergency
heard a lot
room,
of
too.
stroke stories, and
Right. But you, your girlfriend, and that's what you should be an advocate for, like a real advocate. If you're not feeling right,
You gotta
just
go.
go get checked.
Yes.
The hospitals will tell you, I'm sure they said this in the hospital, we'd rather you come and make sure that it's
Right.
nothing.
Yes.
Right.
Because time is of the essence when you're suffering a stroke.
And it's funny you say that, because a few months after, when everything was back to normal, I had a migraine headache, which I typically didn't have before the strokes. And just to err on the side of caution, my parents and I decided we should go to the hospital.
Did you go to a walk-in center first?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story as well. So when I was driving, I was not saying anything, and my girlfriend was on speakerphone not saying anything. And then I remember getting to an intersection, and the ear pain was constant throughout this whole half hour or whatever it might have been. Then all of a sudden the ringing came back, and I said to her, oh, my ear's ringing again. I got dizzy, and I was in the middle of an intersection, and same thing as when I was in the classroom, everything started spinning. There was no way to really safely drive a car. So somehow I managed to go through it and pull off into a side street. And I was trying to explain to her,
You went through the intersection
basically,
while you were dizzy.
yes. And I said to my girlfriend's Kelly, by the way, so I'm sure
Yeah.
she's probably
Hi,
watching.
Kelly.
So hi,
Hi,
Kelly.
Kelly.
I said to her,
She could have came with you.
yeah,
She
she
could come with you to tell.
yes, perfect.
Yeah.
She was gonna come, then she ended up having to go to lunch with her grandma, which is also
Well, you're
very
more than
nice.
welcome to come to Telethon. We want to hear all sides to the story.
Yeah, so I said to her, I need your help, like I need to be picked up, like something weird is happening, and she probably will be a little embarrassed, but I'm sure she was like, "Ugh, here we go again, like I'm sure it's nothing."
Yeah, because she's had it, experienced it.
Yeah, so she said, okay, I'll pick you up, where are you? And I couldn't figure out where I was because I couldn't see. And I started babbling things at her. I was like, Chase Bank, KFC, like whatever. Like I didn't know exactly where I was.
Your mind was disheveled.
Yes.
You did have a brain attack. A stroke is a brain attack.
Yes, and while I was speaking to her, I became less and less coherent because my face started to droop, and I couldn't make words. So I was trying to tell her like Chase Bank, KFC, and I was literally using my fingers to push up my lip to help me speak.
Wow.
And it was weird because even during that, which was unlike anything I ever experienced, I still didn't really think I was having a stroke.
Did you know anything about a stroke before that?
Not too much, to be honest. I did kind of. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we could ask her when we see her, but I'm almost positive I made a joke, like, "Oh, my face isn't working. It's like I'm having a stroke," and we both kind of were like laughed it off, like, "Yeah, right. Like I'm 23. I'm in good health.
Yeah.
Can't be."
Yeah.
But I mean, it turns out it was.
Unborn babies could have a stroke.
Yeah. So she figured out where I was somehow, and she came to get me. And I was kind of like, I felt like, I felt pinned in my car. I couldn't really get my seatbelt off. I was just kind of stuck there. Everything was, if I opened my eyes, everything was so spinning so much that I was getting nauseous. So I had my eyes closed, and then I heard her car pull up. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to.
Okay.
I heard her car pull up, and I kind of just like pushed my door open. And I stumbled out of my car, and I not crawled, but it was a weird walk into her car. She was saying, like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just can't see all this stuff. And then I remember, unfortunately, this is a little gross, but I threw up in her car, which was what made everything come back. Like, after I threw up, the ringing went away, my face went back to normal.
Did they say why that happened?
It was explained to me that what happened was when I had the blood clot in my brain, it was stuck because I'm sure people who watch the show are aware, but they told me that the veins in your body are wider, and a lot of times blood clots that you don't even know are there are freely flowing around. But what happened with me is I had a tiny hole in my heart, and somehow by some like millionth of whatever you want to say, the blood clot went through the hole and up to my brain where the arteries are smaller. So this same blood clot that might have been floating around in there for who knows how long got up to my brain, and it clogged the artery, so no oxygen, no blood could get through. And they said, since I'm young, since I'm healthy, and I have like a very powerful blood flow, eventually what happened was my own body like self-corrected, and it pushed the blood pushed the clot through, and everything went back to normal. And it's possible that when I had that force of like vomiting, that's what helped push the clot through.
Did any doctor ever tell you prior to the stroke that you had a hole in your heart?
No, there was really no reason to check. So we didn't.
you
I was
never
not
had
aware.
a test? Nobody ever said it?
Sometimes things happen for a reason, and this stroke may have saved your life.
Yes,
because
I agree.
It was like a little. You wouldn't have found the hole in your heart unless you suffered the stroke.
So it was a stroke of luck.
Yes, there we go.
Right? So
stroke of luck. And here we are, stroke of luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then she realized something was up because she could have probably because I could be a little dramatic when I'll be the first to admit it. Like when I have a cold, I complain about it. So she was like, she was probably thinking to herself like, okay, this is probably nothing.
She had to really assess.
Right.
The situation.
Once I vomited, she was like, okay, this is serious because that was not normal. She called my mom and she said, what should we do? And I wasn't complaining. Like the droop, everything was so secondary to the ear pains. The ear pain was so unbearable that I kept saying like my ear. I wasn't thinking stroke. I was still thinking maybe I had some kind of inner ear infection that made me lose my balance or I don't know. I was really upset about the ear thing. I kept going on and on about the ear. Right. So they decided we'll go to urgent care and see what they say. A walk-in place like you said. And I went in there. They tested me for the flu. after I explained everything the same way I just explained it to you, and I'm not here to badmouth urgent care facilities, but they tested me for the flu and then said, you probably just got dizzy. It happens. Like, go home and take a nap.
Oh, the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, so I went home and I took a nap.
Oh, my God.
My mom...
What was the time frame?
This was...
I mean, what was the time frame from the onset of this at school?
I believe the first episode was around 10 a.m., and the second one maybe 10:30, and I didn't end up in the emergency room until after 2 p.m. which is a problem because when you have, I forget exactly
4.5 hour window.
Yes, and
the sooner you get there, the better.
to use that medicine what is that called, the clot buster or something?
Yes.
Yeah, luckily I didn't need it.
But you can't have a bleed. If you have a bleed, you can't do that.
Yeah,
you didn't have a bleed. You had a clot.
Yeah, a clot.
But the clot it went away itself, right?
Yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah.
It broke up because.
Yeah, thank God.
Yes.
Because if it didn't happen, that's when the time would have been.
Right, I took way too long to get there because I was not aware of what was happening, which is part of the reason why I want to promote awareness of stroke symptoms. Just because I feel like I was very fortunate, but somebody else in that same situation, if they did all the same things that I did, they might not have survived to tell the story.
Because their clot may have not busted itself.
Exactly.
Your clot flowed through. I'm assuming by what you're explaining to me.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, did you
Yeah, I
want
was
to say
just
something?
thinking the violentness of throwing up. You know, it's such a violent thing on your whole body. Everything's, and it probably just pushed it. I mean, I could actually see how that can
Yes, I see.
when you throw up, it kind of heaves your whole body, you know, and into your...
Yeah, and I don't think it was a coincidence that right after that, everything went back to normal. So I feel like it is definitely related, but it's hard to prove.
You would think that the doctors in a care center like that would have a little bit more knowledge.
Right.
Did you tell them that your face?
Yeah, I explained everything, and they just weren't really believing it, I guess. I don't know. And they only test. It's hard because I didn't, at the time that I went to the urgent care, I wasn't like, I think I had a stroke. Like, what do you guys think? I was saying my ear.
Right.
And they were like, your ear's fine. They looked in it and they said.
But what happens is you know, you experience 2 strokes, and sometimes you kind of like go back to normal. And when you walked in there, you were in that normal, tranquil state, and your ear was bothering you. But all the symptoms that you told them, they really should have, you know.
Yeah.
But it's all in foresight.
Exactly.
It's all in hindsight. Sorry.
Yes.
Because
I know what you meant.
now, you know, we're all. That's why we're here telling people, you know, the basic. You know, like if something's going on in your life and it's not normal, go to the hospital, get it checked.
Yes.
Go to the hospital and get it checked.
Exactly, and I just took way too long to do that. So after they sent me home.
But I believe that your story is impacting the world. You know, because initially none of your symptoms had stroke symptoms. They were none of your stroke symptoms.
Except for his face.
His face didn't happen till he was in the car on the way home.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was way after.
And not being able, and your speech was slurred, which
Yeah.
is also a very important.
That was like the last
But
two things that happened before I vomited.
In the car and your girlfriend had come and found you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the point.
Well,
where
no,
I
he
should've
was.
said-
Yeah, I was trying to explain to her where I was.
He
Yeah.
was slurring your speech before she got.
She was less than 10 minutes away from where I was, so.
Yeah, but when you were at school, none of the.
No, I was
symptoms
speaking
were-
fine. My
Yeah.
face was fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So your mom took you to the.
Yeah.
emergency
So
room?
my mom just she's probably watching too. So she's incredible.
What's your mom's first name?
Her name's Carol Ann.
Hi, Carol Ann.
Carol Ann, you're more than welcome to come to the telephone.
Yes, we would like to hear your part in the story.
Yeah, because it's important to become an advocate, to really share. And, you know, you're sharing your part, but I'm sure, like...
There's different perspectives.
Different perspectives and how the caretaker feels and how the person that's in your family...
And I've been on that side because my dad had a stroke,
Yeah.
so...
It's interesting.
I know the panic.
Yeah, that was the worst part for me, was just knowing that like I was burdening so many people because they were so upset and worried. That didn't sit well with me.
The neurologist, when I met him at the hospital, said, "Your father's going to die."
Oh my goodness.
I actually had to fire this neurologist because he was so negative.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying
need a little
anything
optimism here.
Well, that is true, you know. Judy and I, and Judy's an advocate for this, and of course I am, that, you know, you need to be upbeat. You can't give someone who suffered a stroke or anybody any negativity. You have to be compassionate and empathetic and really understand what they need to be successful in their recovery.
Yes, and so I'll get to that at some point. But
Okay.
basically, when they told us that it was a stroke after the various scans, they explained it in such a non-personal way. It was more of like here's exactly what happened, boom, 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 like a rigid explanation of it medically, and it was kind of scary the way they laid it out. It wasn't like, well, he came through, he has no residual effects, like he's very lucky. It was like, this happened, and we don't know why.
It was
and
more technical.
Yes.
A medical, technical.
They kind of spooked my family more so than if they had the approach that you just said. But yeah, so as I was saying, my mom, she just didn't feel comfortable with that diagnosis. She just felt like, of all the things that I said, she knows I complain about a lot, but this was different.
This was different.
Yeah, so actually, she's technically my stepmother. My actual birth mother passed away when I was really young.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she.
How old were you?
I was, I believe, 4 years old,
my
maybe
gosh.
3. It's like I don't really remember those days, obviously,
my
but she
gosh.
passed away of a brain aneurysm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so my mom was my current mom, who's my stepmom, but she's my mom, so I'm sure. Yeah, she is my mom.
Yes.
It's confusing when I tell this story because I'm talking about my two moms, but my current mom was talking about my birth mom, and she was saying that these symptoms are similar to what she heard about that situation, and it might be hereditary. So that was kind of a driving force for her to be like, okay, like we should go to the hospital just
Right.
if anything, just to be safe.
Right.
And obviously, I agreed because. Although I felt fine, I still was not hearing out of my ear, which was a little. I didn't have any
You kinda
explanation
knew.
for that.
You had an inner sense that this is
Yeah,
better than
I was
something.
not hesitant. I wasn't like, I don't want to go to the hospital. I said, okay, let's go. I knew it would make her feel better. And I also had this feeling, the two of us kind of felt like they'll just go, they'll take a scan, and they'll be like, you're fine, but we just wanted to hear it. And we ended up going to the same hospital where I was treated for a concussion several years prior because I used to play rugby. And I had a concussion playing at Molloy College, and there's Mercy Medical Center is right behind
it's right
it.
There.
Yeah, so even though it wasn't the closest hospital, I mean, I'd already waited this long. It wasn't like, it wasn't the closest to where we live. We decided they have a scan of my brain on file already, so maybe if it'll be the quickest to go there, they can compare them and be like, okay, nothing happened, he's fine.
It would have been a great idea if you had gone straight there. It was right there.
Yeah, it was right where, yes.
It was
It was very close to where I was originally.
But
That's very true.
Let me understand something. This was the first hospital or the second hospital?
The first hospital.
The first hospital that you went to.
Yes.
When you weren't feeling well. Okay.
Yeah, so we decided to go to Mercy Medical Center. We weren't thinking, let's go to the hospital with the best stroke center or anything. We just wanted to go. They have a scan of my brain.
Right,
we wanted to go.
Right.
They had to take another one though.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, they had to.
Right.
They had to get one that was
They
happening
could
now.
compare.
Right, it was more of like
Yeah.
a comparison
Yeah.
type of thing. Like, oh, look, this is how his brain was a few years ago, and this is how it is now. Obviously, that one has a concussion, and this one doesn't, but he's fine, was what we were hoping. And then, all of a sudden, this was Friday around 2 p.m.-ish, and I ended up having to, I stayed at Mercy from that time until, like, late, maybe, like, evening, maybe, like, 4 p.m. on Sunday. So it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was there because they did the scans. They were trying to rule out a brain aneurysm because that was the whole birth mother situation.
Right.
And when it took a long time to get the results back. So we kept getting told, he's probably fine. He's so young. He's so healthy. We're going to get the scan back in the next half hour and you guys will be on your way home. And then all of a sudden a doctor came out with the results and it was like, well, we found 2 infarcts and we don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So basically they explain an infarct as almost like a scar on your brain, and it's evidence of a spot on your brain where there was an oxygen deprivation. So there was 2 separate infarcts. So the 2, like the blood clot that had broken up, it had 2 different episodes, and the infarct or the scar was essentially evidence that there was a stroke on this particular part of the brain. They can't pinpoint the time, but
Right.
based on how it looked, they said it looks like it happened today, and it made sense. I had 2 separate episodes. One infarct was bigger than the other, so the one episode that was more intense with the face and the vomiting. Yeah, the second one. And they said they referred to it as infarcts or 2 strokes on your brain. They didn't really say you had a stroke, so we didn't really understand what was going on. And then we got clarification, and it was like when the doctor came in and told us this happened, and you had 2 strokes and we don't really know why. It was kind of scary, especially for my parents.
Can I share something?
Yeah, of course.
This is because things come to me. And no. You know, I just...
Well, you've been there.
Well, this is really an advocacy for family people that have had strokes. That it is the family's responsibility, our responsibility, to really understand what's going on, like your family was trying to understand it,
of course,
and to really put all the pieces together. Because medical people only know you for that specific time. They only know what they're seeing. Where your mother, your stepmother, or your mom is really put it together. She knew that your mother had a stroke, an aneurysm, and she's the one that really is tying together all the pieces to everything, and she's taking you on this course.
Yes.
That really is so important. When I've been to hospitals, over the course of time, my sister was my advocate. She was like, nope, this is what happened. Nope, you're taking too much time. We need to know this. Nope, I want to know now because she was
like her.
She was so aware that time was of the essence. She was not going to let the hospital guide us because we understand that it's a profession. It's people got to do their work. They have so many things going on. But the family member has to be the one that
the family member has to be clear on what's going on.
And they have to be the one to understand and accept and
also make decisions.
Yes, and make decisions because ultimately they know us better than anybody. My daughter Samantha just recently had clots on her lungs. And we had to put all the pieces together. So I applaud your mom for understanding her role and to really take that on.
Yeah, she's the best. I could get into it, but I'm sure I'll probably get emotional. Like she's awesome.
When you mentioned brain aneurysms and all that, you were referred by Jason Wallen,
yes,
technologist. Did you go to those meetings at Good Sam?
So what happened was they meet on Tuesdays, and on Tuesdays it's when we have rugby practice, so I never actually had the chance, but rugby season's not in session right now, so I've been meaning to get around to it.
Yeah, well, we this week, I guess we'll say it online. We want to have... if you can find more young people that would like to come and be a part of our telethon.
From the group or from anywhere,
okay.
because we want people to see that this doesn't happen only to the grandparents. This
right.
is so important to make it visual, that people are out in front and saying, like, you're on the air and you're saying, this happened to me at 23 years old, and this happened to me and me and me and me and me, so that they can finally get it and say, oh, wow, that does happen.
That's how you bring awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. So continue. I'm sorry to have
No, it's okay. That was great. I
just
appreciate
really
it.
want to, when I want to capture the moment, I always say that you can't say it later on because
right.
people won't understand what you're trying to relay. So
no, that was perfect. Thank you. And I agree. So basically, they gave us a diagnosis and they emphasized that it was very concerning that I'm so young and they can't figure out why it happened. They were running all these tests. And I remember while the doctor was explaining it to my parents, like, you could see the look on their face. They were very concerned. I was just like laying in a hospital bed. I was listening and I was scared and I knew my family was scared. And this is like a little corny, but there's a TV show called Lost. It was a TV show.
Yeah, isn't it about
it was about a plane crash on an island. And
It was an old show.
It was an old show. It was out when I was like in elementary school, but it's one of my favorite shows. Yeah. And there's a scene in it where obviously what happened to them was really scary. Their plane crashed. They were on an island. There was some kind of monster. People were terrified. And one of the characters explained, a woman named Kate, she said to Jack, she was like, I don't understand how you're not scared. Everybody else is scared except for you. And he said fear is kind of a funny thing. He explained how he was a spinal surgeon and he had a situation where he was operating on somebody and he accidentally did something wrong. He cut them in the wrong spot and nerves were flying everywhere and he was scared. And he said he decided that instead of not dealing with this fear, he was going to deal with it. He was going to let everything in, all the negativity, all the bad thoughts, for 5 seconds, and only 5 seconds. So he's paused what he was doing. He counted to 5 really dramatically. Obviously, it was a TV show. Yeah. He's counting to 5. He's letting in, oh my goodness, I screwed up. This patient's going to die. All these horrible thoughts. And once he got up, he did 1, let in some bad energy, some negative thoughts. Oh my goodness, why is this happening? 2, kept getting worse and worse. By the time he got to 5, he let all the negativity in. And then once he got to 5, it was over. He was like, I let the fear do its thing for 5 seconds, and then I went back. Positive action. Went right back to work.
Taking back control of your life, because you don't want to give control to the situation.
Exactly. So he said it's important to make sure you deal with fear. It's wrong to deal with fear by not dealing with it. So I kind of took his advice, even though he's a fictional character. I remember laying on the hospital bed while my parents were getting the spiel from the doctor, and I was counting to 5. I'm like, 1, why did this happen to me? This is terrible. 2, am I gonna die? 3, like, oh my goodness, everyone's gonna be so upset, like all these things. And then eventually I got up to 5, and when I was done, I looked back and I could see my parents were so upset. But I kind of internally just dealt with it in 5 seconds. All the negativity, as dark as thoughts can get, that was how it was, but only for 5 seconds. That was all. That's what he says in the show. He said 5 seconds was all I would give it.
So that show.
Yeah, I wouldn't let it last more than 5 seconds. And once the 5 seconds were over, I was just thinking, okay, so that was terrible, but you know what? Here I am, and you start thinking of the positive things, and it's like, how am I going to deal with this? And I decided, personally, I'm not, this doesn't work for everybody, but I was going to deal with it with a sense of humor. Yeah. So you can imagine there was a lot of stroke jokes and stroke puns, you name it.
I remember when I had my stroke, and I vividly remember laying in the bed and looking at my father, and his girlfriend was next to him, and I could just sense that he was thinking like his mother had lost 3 children, so he was fearful. Mm-hmm. And I could just, and I couldn't talk. I was in another world.
You had a massive stroke.
I was in another world. I didn't even, but I could sense like their fear. And I remember just trying to say to him, and I couldn't say to him, I'm okay, I'm here. Like, I guess because we're in our bodies and we know what's going on, where they just have fear of what's to happen, the unknown.
Exactly. And I have a hard time.
That's how I felt too.
Yeah, I have a hard time explaining this to people, but almost from the moment we talked about when I threw up, from that moment, like, obviously we were confused and we were like, what was that? But I felt like I wasn't in grave danger. I felt like I was going to be okay for some reason. Yeah. And it's hard to get that feeling to translate to the people who care about you.
Because you can't explain it.
Right.
You're just, because your brain has been disheveled or attacked, or brain attack, and you can't really say, this is what's happening. Like, you just got to go through it. It's really scary.
And I knew that
really scary.
Once the episode I was having, sitting in my car, where I felt like I was pinned in there, everything was spinning, my ear, all of those things together was probably like the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
And I knew, very frightening.
Yes, and I knew it was over. When it was over, I was like, okay, that happened, but I got through it. So I
remember one morning waking up and having vertigo,
mm-hmm.
and the whole room is spinning, and my husband's going, I know what this is. This is what you got to do. Then I'll take you to the doctor. But it's very scary to have the whole place spinning.
Yes.
And you lose control.
Right, so once I got out of that, I felt grateful that I had survived it, because I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, am I dying right now? But I didn't. So part of me was just like, the worst is behind me. So now it's just about, let's figure out why, so that something like this doesn't happen again. But I didn't feel like I was really in any danger, whereas my loved ones, like my friends, family, girlfriend, you name it, they were like, oh my goodness, he's in danger. Right. Especially because the doctors were basically telling them the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, and in our world, and this is what we say about insurance and politics and just recovery in general, confirm how you feel about this, that the most important piece to recovery is being surrounded with love.
Oh yeah, big time.
Being surrounded with love, just to compass you so you could just start healing.
I agree with that completely.
So how long were you in the hospital?
So I got in about 2 p.m. on Friday, and at some point, maybe around 11:30 that night, they decided, that was around the time they finally read me the diagnosis. I had gone through a series of testing, and they decided, because they couldn't figure out, although I appeared to be fine, and they did all the tests where they like snap in your ear, and they all that, everything was normal. They still weren't sure what caused it, so they wouldn't feel comfortable sending me home, so I had to be admitted. So I stayed over Friday night, more tests Saturday, more blood taken out of me than I even knew existed in the human body. They were just pumping blood out of me. They were sending it to labs here and there, trying to figure out if I had a clotting disorder. They really were testing for everything because they couldn't. And it's funny because after all that testing, we still came away with, we're not sure. Because
why you had this
they ruled out a lot of,
yes,
we're not sure why. Yeah, they ruled out a lot of scary possible causes, but which was nice.
So they still didn't say anything about your heart?
No, I didn't find that out till much later. That was an outpatient testing that I did.
What kind of testing was it exactly?
So eventually, I was just in the hospital the whole weekend doing tests. I just wanted to get home. It was Super Bowl weekend. I just wanted to get home and watch the Super Bowl with my family. And eventually they said we did as much as we could. We couldn't really find out the cause, but he seems fine. He can go home, but you need to follow up here, do this, do that. And one of the things they wanted me to do was to have a TEE, I think it's called, it's like an echocardiogram where they, transesophageal echocardiogram, right? Something like that.
Something
so
like
basically what...
You know more than me. I always tell them I am not medical.
Right, neither am I.
I will never be medical.
Yes,
so don't ever expect me. That's why I have doctors on the show, so that they could
exactly. Yeah, I try to explain it in layman's terms because that's how I can understand it. But the name is not as important. Basically what they explained it as is they put me under anesthesia, and they basically stuck some kind of camera or something down my throat so that they could get a better look at my heart.
I know exactly what it is. I don't know the...
And that's how
they revealed that there was a hole, and that was most likely the cause, so I had to have that hole patched up. Yeah, that was... But the stroke was February 2nd. I'm not exactly sure when the procedure was where they stuck the camera in, but I didn't have the hole closed until May 10th. So there was a very long...
Wow.
It was a long time before I had closure, like both literally, because the whole closure, and figuratively, like, oh, I'm finally done with this whole ordeal.
So what they determined caused your stroke was the...
It's hard to say. I actually just followed up with Dr. Katz, and he said I should take an aspirin every day for the rest of my life because even though we fixed what we think is the cause, there's no way to be 100% sure that was the cause. You still had a stroke, and it could have been from... a freak thing, but you never know. So they're fairly certain it was because of the hole, and the procedure's is minimally invasive. The side effects are not super concerning, so it was like worth it to just have it done just in case it was the cause.
And so you didn't have any rehabilitation as far as you weren't paralyzed or anything?
No, actually, when I was in the stroke unit at the hospital, when I was admitted, they kept coming in and they were trying to teach me how to chew my food and how to walk, and I felt really bad because I didn't need those things, and I was like, I could walk, I could chew, so that was part of what was in the back of my mind too when I realized I wanted to just do my part to help, is because I felt really fortunate that even though I was going through this, it was a much lighter of a load than a lot of other people that have had strokes. God. So I felt a little guilty almost, like, why am I, why am I this okay?
Because you're going to spread the word.
Right, there's people that are anxious, depressed, suicidal, can't walk, can't chew, and here I am, like, cracking jokes about it.
You could actually go to hospitals or schools or whatever and give a talk about it.
And they don't, their life is not going to be so successful. They're in wheelchairs.
Exactly.
They have brain damage forever. That's on the flip side. That's why we explain, to get to the hospital.
Yes.
ASAP.
Exactly.
Because we want to prevent people, because I believe that 80% of strokes can be prevented if they're caught within that 4.5 hour window. Of course, that other 20% where there's aneurysms and those are situations that you can't do anything about. And our board member Bobby Baby Walker suffered 3 strokes, I believe. Because he has high blood pressure, has cholesterol, has diabetes. But there's things that you can't help. But if you know the signs and you get to the hospital within that 4.5 hour window, you could save someone's. You could save
And
their own
you
life.
should really
Exactly.
try to get to the hospital a lot sooner than 4.5 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, but sometimes you could be by yourself. Sometimes so you got on the phone and you were you amazed me in your consciousness of what was happening.
Right, and what you said about how important it is for that 4-hour window, I feel like if I can just explain what happened to me and explain how I because I didn't know I was having a stroke, I wasn't aware. I did the wrong things, and it could have led to disastrous consequences, and luckily it didn't.
Right.
But I want to make sure that people are aware that a stroke can happen to anybody, and here's what you need to look out for. And if it does happen to you, you got to go to the hospital as soon as possible. And that's why I'm
Straight
kind of
to the
just
emergency
shouting that
room.
from the mountaintops, because if one person hears it, or thousands of people hear it, one person has a stroke and remembers,
Or somebody could hear it and see someone having a stroke and say, that looks like a stroke, we got to get you to the emergency room.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
Exactly. We take it one step further that, you got to do it immediately. We also add in that, when you're making that phone call to the hospital, a 911, to let them know this could possibly be a stroke, because then they'll go into stroke mode.
Mm-hmm.
They will pass triage. They'll take you in for a CAT scan. They'll analyze it as soon as they come. Like, oh my God, this is a stroke.
And
This is a stroke.
I don't know if you saw in the newspaper, in Newsday, in early March, the Stony Brook,
telemedicine?
Stony Brook Hospital is going to have emergency units, like emergency vans with all the equipment in it. For anyone who has a stroke, it's going to be at exit 57
Oh, wow.
in Icelandia, and also in Shirley at exit 68. And I was so excited about that.
Yeah,
And
that's great
I just
news.
wish that other hospitals would also do something about that, because if there were vans at various places, let's say you were along that area,
Right.
that would have been an immediate solution to your problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you would have had help right away.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Did you ever hear telemedicine? It's almost like you're Skyping with the doctor,
Oh, cool.
so that they could view you.
And
they probably do that in the van. I'm sure there's not a
Probably.
I don't know the specifics because we
I don't have my
haven't
notes with me,
Yeah.
but I
I'm
talked
sure, though,
about it
Yeah.
on a previous show, that this was something that Stony Brook Hospital was doing, and they were going to start doing it in March.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's
Steven,
good to
we
hear.
we only have a few more minutes.
Time flies when you're
I
having
know,
fun.
and this is really important. Really important. But I want to bring in your rugby.
Sure.
Because someone had said, and we're not sure because we don't know where this came from or how this happened, but someone thought it could have, that your rugby experience and playing could have played a part in your stroke.
Right. So my neurologist said that it most likely, it's hard, like anything, it's
Right,
hard to
right.
prove. Most likely wasn't from rugby, just because by the time I had the stroke, I hadn't played rugby in over 2 years. So it's been a long time. But then I spoke at an event it was to various doctors and things, and I explained my story and all this. And afterwards, one of the doctors, I'm not exactly sure, I forget his name and exactly what his specialty was, but he's like, do you ever consider that maybe from playing rugby for 4 years, you're getting banged around and like your body's getting damaged? It's possible a blood clot could have formed then during those years and has been floating around in your body since, and then just now it just decided to squeak up through the hole in your heart.
You could have a concussion, you could fall, something could happen, and you let it go for a few years, and that could happen.
Exactly, yeah. So he said it's possible, but I'm not really too sure, to be honest.
I mean, you never know. You don't know the definite situation of why it happened. Hearing your story, I think it was almost a stroke of luck that you had a stroke, because you did find the hole in your heart.
It actually saved your life.
And it may have saved your life. That little experience that you suffered, through a stroke.
And it brought you to us.
Yes, exactly.
Which is another stroke of luck.
So you still coach, and tell the audience why you feel like an advocate to be a coach, so that you could train your athletes in the right way.
Right. So you had actually asked me prior, and I've been asked that before. Like, say for example, it's possible that the stroke was indirectly caused by rugby. Like, why would you want to still play or still be around the game. And to me, I just feel like, well, first of all, I love the sport, and there's a lot to be learned about safety in all sports, but specifically rugby kind of gets a bad rep because you don't wear pads, you're tackling each other. But there's a safe way to do it. And for me, I coach the men's rugby team at Molloy, and the women's team's coach, her name is Mel. She's a really good friend of mine, and the two of us, mostly, she knows a lot more than I do, and she's helped me with it. We stress the importance of safety, especially when tackling. It's a fast-paced contact sport, and safety is the utmost importance, because these are college athletes. They're not going to be professional rugby players. They're going to be professional doctors, nurses, accountants, teachers. And we don't want them to have a devastating injury while they're playing a sport in college for fun. So we stress the importance of safety. And I personally feel like rather than leaving it up to somebody else, I want to coach and I want to be a part of the team so that I can help these young student athletes learn how to be safe while they play. And knowing that there are possible consequences, it doesn't deter me from being around it, or it doesn't make me feel like I want to tell these kids, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't play because it's dangerous and look what happened to me. I feel the opposite. I feel like it was such a great experience. I made so many lifelong friends, and I want to be around the game, and I want to help these student athletes learn how to play it safely.
Sports are really important.
Yes.
Sports are really important in life. And that doesn't matter whether you like to play tennis or like to play golf or like to sing or whatever you're attracted to. Really teaches you the tools and protocols to really be successful at whatever it is you're doing.
I tell their parents, I say, we're not going to, we may not win all the games, or we're not going to be professional rugby players when it's through, but they're going to be professional somethings. They're going to be respectful young men, and they're going to be good citizens that understand things like time management and punctuality. All these things are important lessons. Yes, important lessons they can learn through rugby.
And losing, how to be successful, how to take a
bounce
loss,
back and
see what can I learn from this situation.
Exactly.
It's really important. Mine was softball. My softball tools helped me to be successful.
Coach.
Yeah, and I personally think too, and it's a little cliche, but I feel like what I learned through rugby about just overcoming hardships and adversity. I was like, if you look at me, I'm now a physical specimen.
Yeah.
If you're playing Division II rugby against some giant men, I took my fair share of beatings. I dislocated my shoulder more times than I can even count. And through this adversity and through this pain, all these things, I learned how to get through it, and I felt pretty confident during the whole stroke ordeal. I've been through a lot. This is nothing. I could handle this, and that in that sense it helped too.
Because of your experiences in life, and that's a whole nother thing which you can come on the show again and we'll talk about. Okay, how can you use those tools to be successful? We really need to learn how to use the tools that are gifted to us. And the other thing is that when you're healthy, you need to start preparing yourself for what if. You know what I'm saying? You played rugby, that taught you the tools. You can't just be somebody that sits at home and doesn't do anything. If you wanna keep learning, you can learn. There's so many ways to learn nowadays. You don't need to even pay. You can go on YouTube. You could Skype things. There's so many tools that you could learn. So money isn't really a situation of a blockage anymore.
Right.
So you are potential, I'd say, motivational speaker.
Yes.
I would love to if the opportunity presented itself.
From you.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So we have to go. Right, Jim? We're almost... Okay. So, but thank you. You're a part of our family, and we look forward to having you on the telethon and really telethon. It's our 5th annual telethon.
And your girlfriend and your mom?
Yes, I'll definitely run it by them. I'm sure I'll get at least one of them.
Yes.
And if your dad wants to come?
Yeah. The whole family. Know that whoever...
We'll guilt them into it. I'm sure they'll probably watch it.
Yeah. And just so you know, I always go home and upload this to YouTube, and it's on the Village Connection YouTube, and I put it on our website, and the more networking that we have, the more that we will get the word out. You could share our website with your team, share it out to this is so important. What you're doing is really important.
I just appreciate you having me on, because I love sending this story out there, and hopefully, it sticks with somebody, and somebody
Definitely will help
save at least one life somewhere.
And what's wonderful about this is an hour taped video.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen to it again.
You can always send somebody to it. You'll have it. We'll send it to you. You'll always have it to be able to share with everybody, which is a blessing.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I honestly had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Before we go, Jim, could you just pop up the telethon flyer? This is our telethon. Bridget Oy is the Miss Senior Connecticut, and she is going to be a special guest that day. And like I said before, when I was watching the Miss America pageant, she just was talking about it being her advocacy, and because she knew someone who had suffered a stroke. And she didn't know the warning signs, and she's an advocate for it. So you'll meet her that day.
Oh, cool! Which
is an honor and privilege. We have so many more guests on the telethon, and we ran out of time because we've had such a wonderful conversation. But please go to our website www.languageoflovetelethon.org, and you'll see all the guests that I'm uploading. I think we have about 40 people on the list right now.
We may even have more.
Yeah, and we want to invite everybody. We're saying it out loud, but we're going to personally invite everybody from our first 4 telethons to really come. And I don't think this telethon is going to be so much about interviews. Yeah, it's going to be about quick stories, but really keep the energy flowing and just the awareness, and and FaceTime and Skype, and just really bring everybody in. If you are
I have Enid. You remember Enid?
Yes.
Enid Marin wants to do a monologue.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. We're going to have entertainers. So, if you know of any singers or performers that really want to come, and what I also put out there was, I remember being a young singer myself and really want the opportunity, know that they can come, and we want to give them this platform to be a part of it.
Just give them my phone.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Blow our kisses. Let's go. Ready? Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Have a stroke of luck in your life. See you later.
Have a nice
that all dead. The lines cut off inside my head. I left here like a broken man with no idea of where I stand. Oh, my mind clear. Oh, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting here while you moved on. Security, this newfound freedom you kept from me. The sound of all your loaded guns. This outbreak war has just begun. The sound of all your loaded guns. This broken man has already won. Oh, my mind clear. Oh, I shed all of my tears. Oh, now baby, I was just waiting.